Here is something that will completely shift how you understand women. A woman decides within the first 4 seconds of meeting you whether she will ever allow you into her personal space. 4 seconds. That is not even enough time to finish saying your name. And yet, in those 4 seconds, her brain has already run a complete threat assessment, emotional compatibility scan, and future prediction algorithm that would make artificial intelligence jealous. But here is the part nobody talks about. The moment she allows you to touch a specific area of her body, and I am not talking about anything inappropriate, I am talking about everyday places that seem completely innocent. She has already made a decision about you that goes far beyond friendship. Psychiatrist Marian Rojas has spent decades studying the female brain, stress hormones, and what she calls the architecture of trust, and what she found completely contradicts everything mainstream dating advice tells you. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what it means when a woman allows certain types of contact, why her brain operates this way, and the one-touch zone that reveals more about her feelings than she would ever admit out loud. But first, I need to tell you about a study that literally changed how scientists understand female attraction. So here is what most people get embarrassingly wrong about women and touch. They think touch is about attraction. They think if a woman lets you close, she finds you physically appealing. Wrong. Completely, totally, scientifically wrong. Touch is not about attraction. Touch is about safety. And those two things are not the same. Dr. Marian Rojas Estepy, in her groundbreaking work on cortisol and the stress response system, explains that the female brain processes physical proximity through the amygdala first. That is the fear center. Before a woman ever thinks about whether you are handsome, charming, or successful, her brain asks one question and one question only. Is this person safe? And here is why this matters so much. 83% of women report that they have felt physically uncomfortable with a man who never technically did anything wrong. No inappropriate comments, no obvious boundary violations, just something that felt off. That feeling comes from the amygdala detecting microsignals that the conscious mind cannot even articulate. So when a woman allows you to touch her, she is not just saying she finds you attractive. She is saying something far more significant. She is saying her ancient survival brain has classified you as non-threatening. And according to Roa Sustapi, that classification is the foundation of every single romantic connection that has ever existed. Now let me explain exactly how this works because the science here is absolutely fascinating. All right, so let me break down what actually happens in a woman's brain when physical contact occurs. The moment someone enters a woman's personal space, which is roughly 18 in from her body, her hypothalamus activates. This triggers a cascade of hormonal responses. If she perceives threat, cortisol floods her system. Her heart rate increases, her muscles tense, and her brain begins cataloging escape routes. All of this happens subconsciously. By the way, she might not even realize why she suddenly feels the urge to step back or check her phone or mention her boyfriend. But here is where it gets interesting. If she perceives safety, the opposite happens. Her brain releases oxytocin. This is often called the bonding hormone. But Marian Roas Estepy describes it more accurately as the trust hormone. Oxytocin literally reduces activity in the amygdala. It makes fear quieter. It makes connection feel not just possible, but desirable. A 2018 study published in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology found that women have 40% more oxytocin receptors in key brain regions than men do. This is massive. It means women are neurologically designed to form deeper bonds through positive touch. But it also means they are more sensitive to negative touch experiences. This explains something that has confused men for generations. Why does she flinch when one guy touches her arm, but practically melt when another guy does the exact same thing? The difference is not the action. The difference is the preceding context that either triggered cortisol or triggered oxytocin. Rosapi calls this the invisible handshake. Long before physical contact ever happens, the emotional groundwork has already been established. A woman's brain has already decided whether your touch will feel like a warm blanket or an unexpected alarm. And this leads me to the first major revelation about what it actually means when she lets you touch specific areas. So, psychologists have mapped out what they call proximity zones. And understanding these zones is absolutely critical if you want to understand feminine psychology. The first zone is the public zone. This extends from about 4 ft away to 12 ft. In this zone, a woman feels completely safe. There is enough distance for escape if necessary. Casual acquaintances exist here. The mailman exists here. That weird neighbor who always waves too enthusiastically exists here. Touch in this zone is rare and usually formal. A handshake, maybe a brief shoulder pat. The second zone is the social zone. This is roughly 18 into 4 ft. Friends occupy this space. Coworkers, family members she tolerates at holidays. Touch here becomes more common but remains governed by strict social rules. A hug that lasts exactly the appropriate amount of time. A pat on the back, maybe brief arm contact during a joke. Now here is where everything changes. The third zone is the intimate zone. This is 0 to 18 in. And I need you to understand something crucial. The intimate zone is not necessarily romantic. Her mother exists in this zone. Her best friend exists here. Her dog definitely exists here. But when a woman allows a man she is not related to, not in a committed relationship with, and not medically examining her into this zone, something significant has shifted. Dr. Roas Estepi conducted informal surveys with over 2,000 women across Spain and Latin America about physical boundaries. What she found challenged conventional assumptions. 71% of women reported that they consciously monitor which zone they allow men to occupy. This is not subconscious. This is deliberate. They are actively managing proximity as a safety mechanism and a communication tool. But here is the finding that shocked even Roa Sestap. 62% of women said they had allowed a man into their intimate zone specifically to test whether he would respect the privilege. She let him close not because she had decided about him, but because she was still deciding his behavior in that moment of proximity would determine everything. This completely reframes the whole concept. When a woman lets you close, she might not be signaling acceptance. She might be running a final examination, and the areas where she allows contact tell you exactly what kind of test she is running. Okay, so now we get to the specific areas, and this is where the psychology becomes incredibly precise. The hands. When a woman allows you to hold her hand, touch her palm, or examine her fingers, this seems innocent. It is not. The hands contain some of the highest concentrations of nerve endings in the human body. More importantly, the hands represent agency. We use our hands to defend ourselves, to push away threats, to create distance. When a woman allows someone to hold her hands, she is symbolically surrendering her primary defensive tools. Roas notes that hand-holding releases a spike of oxytocin that actually exceeds the spike produced by a brief hug. This is because prolonged, gentle contact with the hands signals that the threat assessment period has ended. She has moved from evaluation to connection. The lower back. This one is significant, and many people misunderstand why. The lower back is a vulnerable spot. From a purely physical standpoint, it is difficult to protect. A hand on the lower back also implies guidance, direction, a subtle form of leadership through physical space. When a woman is comfortable with a hand on her lower back, she is communicating acceptance of that dynamic. She trusts not only that you will not harm her, but that you might actually lead her somewhere good. Research from the University of Vienna in 2019 found that women's heart rates showed a calming response to lower back touch from men. They had previously indicated trust toward the same touch from men they felt uncertain about produced elevated heart rates and increased cortisol. Same touch, completely different physiological response based entirely on established emotional context, the hair. And here is where things get really interesting, because hair touch operates on a completely different psychological level. Hair is associated with identity, femininity, and vulnerability. Anthropologists have noted that across virtually every human culture, hair touching between potential mates carries significant weight. When a woman allows you to touch her hair, brush something from it, or playfully interact with it, she is granting access to something deeply personal. A 2020 study in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior found that hair touch from a preferred partner activated reward centers in the female brain. Similar to receiving a compliment or a small gift, hair touch from a non-preferred person activated disgust. Responses: the same physical action, wildly different brain reactions. The determining factor was not the touch itself, but the relationship preceding it. This is what Marian Rojas Estate means when she talks about the architecture of trust. The physical action is just the visible structure. The invisible foundation is everything that came before. So now let me explain the psychological mechanism that governs all of this, because this is where most advice completely fails. A woman's decision to allow physical proximity operates on two tracks simultaneously. The first track is the rational assessment. This is the conscious evaluation of who you are, what you represent, whether you align with her values, whether you seem stable and emotionally intelligent. This track is slow and deliberate. It asks questions, it weighs evidence, it considers consequences. The second track is the emotional assessment. This is the subconscious evaluation running in the background. It processes your body language, your micro expressions, your vocal tonality, even your smell. This track is fast and instinctive. It does not ask questions, it delivers verdicts. Rojas explains that these two tracks must reach the same conclusion before a woman will feel genuinely comfortable with physical closeness. If her rational brain says yes, but her emotional brain says no, she will feel uncomfortable and will not fully understand why. If her emotional brain says yes, but her rational brain says no, she might feel drawn to you, but will resist that pull because something does not add up. The magic moment happens when both tracks align. When they do, her entire demeanor shifts, her body language opens, her voice softens, her proximity tolerance expands dramatically. This is the moment she lets you touch her there. And by there, I mean whatever zone she has been protecting most carefully. For some women, it is physical. For others, it is emotional space she guards just as fiercely. When she grants access, you have passed both examinations, the conscious and the subconscious, the rational and the emotional. And here is the part most men miss entirely. The moment she lets you in is not the finish line. It is actually the starting point of a completely new evaluation. Rojas describes this as the maintenance phase of trust. Getting into someone's intimate zone requires passing certain tests. Staying there requires passing different tests entirely. A woman's brain continues monitoring even after initial trust has been established. She is watching how you handle the access you have been granted. Do you respect limits? Do you escalate appropriately, or do you push? Do you seem grateful for the proximity, or do you act entitled to it? Studies on relationship longevity show that couples who maintain physical affection have cortisol levels that are significantly lower than couples who do not. But here is the critical detail. The cortisol reduction only occurs when the physical affection feels safe and consistent. Unpredictable affection, or affection that feels performative rather than genuine, actually increases stress hormones over time. So if you want to understand feminine psychology at its core, understand this. A woman's willingness to let you close is not just about you. It is about how she feels when she is close to you. It is about the version of herself that emerges in your presence. It is about whether proximity to you makes her feel more safe, more valued, more understood. The question she is subconsciously asking is not whether you are worthy of her space. The question is whether her space becomes better when you are in it. And when the answer to that question is yes, when she feels more herself because you are near, you have achieved something far more significant than physical access. You have become psychologically essential. So let me leave you with the most important insight from everything we have covered. Touch is not a technique. Touch is a translation. It translates emotional safety into physical expression. When a woman allows you into her intimate space, she is not responding to moves or tactics or strategies. She is responding to a cumulative emotional experience that made closeness feel not just acceptable, but desirable. Marian Rojas Sustapi summarizes it beautifully. She says that trust is not given, trust is grown. And the places where a woman allows you to connect physically are simply the visible flowers of an invisible garden you have been cultivating through patience, respect, and genuine emotional presence. So the next time you are wondering what it means when she lets you in, remember this. It means she ran every test her ancient brain could throw at you. It means she weighed every interaction, every micro expression, every moment of emotional resonance. And it means she decided consciously and subconsciously that you passed. That is not a small thing. That is everything. And speaking of understanding what women really want, I have something that connects directly to everything we just covered. There is a video appearing on your screen right now called If She Lets You Touch Her There. You've already one that goes even further into specific scenarios, real-world examples, and the exact moments where everything shifts. I genuinely recommend watching it immediately after this one because it builds on the psychological foundation we just laid and shows you how these principles play out in actual situations. Think of it as part 2 of the same lesson. The video you just watched gave you the why. That video gives you the how. Click it now because understanding feminine psychology is not about learning once. It is about layering insights until the picture becomes undeniably clear. That video is your next layer. I will see you there.